Hi there, and welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast, which is brought to you by fans for fans, where the content is free. It's a bonus episode tonight, guys, of the Gersnet Podcast. We're going to have a wee look at the St Johnstone game tomorrow, as well as a couple of wee bits and bobs that have been happening through the week. I'm your host, I'm Colin Armstrong. Excuse me. I've got a frog in my throat again. As I say to you all the time, guys, it's not just the podcast we have here at Gersnet. We've got the forums, we've got articles on the website, there's a history archive, social media, all that stuff. So get yourself on there. If it's the first time you've listened to us or watched us, then we would ask you to subscribe. Put a good word out there for us on social media. We're live tonight. It's Tuesday night before Rangers take on St Johnstone at McDermott Park. But the podcast will be available to download or stream on a variety of platforms from tomorrow, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, Spotify, all the usual places, guys. Week in, week out. Bring in my guest now, and it's John McCallum. And we were comparing mugs before we came on air. I think I'm winning, John. I've got the 1987 away shirt.
Well, it's quite good. I've got the last trip to Belfast mug. So,
right.
Elements of staunch, but you win. I'll give you that.
Yeah. I'm quite impressed with it. I don't know if you know the story of the mug. I got it just before Christmas time. But I was so paranoid, and we were talking about this the other day there on the WhatsApp, I was so paranoid about using it because every Saturday I had a different mug. I would sit down with my cup of tea and watch the game and we would win. So I couldn't change my routine. So it sat for like 3-4 months in my cupboard unused until we got over the line. But it's getting well used now. So
we are perfectly sane, normal people usually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing no right about that part at all.
Mm. I'm trying to decide if we're Sunday was good. I haven't stopped smiling since Sunday. Sunday, we did the preview on Friday night, and I think we were both felt if we turned up, we'd win. And what was nice was we turned up. We certainly the first half hour. We were all over them. Inevitably, they had chances. Inevitably, they had some of the ball in the second half, but when we turned up, we just looked much better. Yeah. And I think he tactically got it right. Bringing Arfield in and putting Aribo up, gave us two flanks.
Well, he must have listened to us their advice on Friday, because that's
we know he does. We know he does.
Back,
Yeah, we know he does.
So do you think we'll get a wee thank you from him, or maybe a wee bonus somewhere? No?
I think new mugs, maybe.
Maybe new mug. A new mug for Stevie G would be cool. Like I would take that. You know what I mean? That would be good.
No, Sunday was fantastic. Yeah, I have to say, I really enjoyed the match. It would have been, despite everything that's happened this season, it's been a great season. Going out the cup to them at that stage, would have been it wouldn't have spoilt the season, but it certainly would have. It would have made the rest of them want something of an anticlimax. So
and it kind of feels like the season's. I mean, don't get me wrong. Delighted that we've won it so early. You know what I mean? It's just such an indictment on this team and how good they are. But I do feel that when we went out to Sparta or Slavia or whoever it was, that felt like a wee turning moment in the season, and a wee bit of the impetus came out of it. So it's good that we've still. I mean, obviously there's unbeaten thing that we want to keep going for, but that to me that's a wee bit of a sideshow. I would like to get it, but the main goal has been achieved. We've won the league, so it's good that we can. There's still a trophy to go for, and as you say, losing it to them would have been sore. I can remember I was at Hampden when we were going for the treble in 1989, and Joe Miller scored that goal. Gary Stevens.
I still never forgiven Gary Stevens for that.
It was the best man in the park that day. It was the best player in the park by a country mile.
But never forgiven.
It's something he's renowned for, Gary Stevens. He done it in the FA Cup final as well. A short pass back. He put in Ian Rush and Everton lost. But I was there that day, and even although we'd won the league and we'd won the League Cup, the season did end in a wee bit.
It left the summer just. Yeah, I agree.
Until we signed Maurice Johnson, and everything was great again. Then we were
That's a whole different podcast.
Again, going, how are you doing, mate? You all right?
A whole different podcast.
Anyway, John, until tomorrow night, St Johnstone, I think, obviously there's 4 games to go. As I was saying there, there's still got a wee bit of something to play for in terms of trying to go the season undefeated. So, I mean, tomorrow night, obviously coming off a great result. We won there 3-0 the last time we were there. I think it was just a couple of days before Christmas. So, I mean, St Johnstone have had a good season. I don't think you can deny that. You know, they're finishing the top 6, and they've won the Betfred Cup. So
and a good run to get them into the top 6.
Yeah.
So
you'd have to say that Callum Davidson's done a great job, you know, and it's a good achievement for him. But I was looking at the league table today. We are 52 points ahead of them. Wow. They're on 40 points. We're on 92. You know what I mean? So it can be a tricky place to go to. You know, I've been there a few times in the years, and you know, sometimes it can be quite tricky. But you would hope, even if he does freshen it up a wee bit, which we'll talk about soon, you would hope that we've got enough to get a result there tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be a funny game because both teams are coming into this game with one eye on the weekend.
Yeah.
And so I expect the St Johnstone team, you know, it's. They'll be looking at Saturday's game Sunday's game and saying, right, well, you know, that's the important one. They can't qualify for Europe. They don't really have anything to play for. So I suspect there are quite a few changes in their team too. I think they'll rest a few of their key players. You know, they'll use this game to see. I could see them sending out a few cluggers to try and take a few of our guys out for the weekend. But yeah, you would certainly expect, even with a changed team, you would expect us to have enough to beat them. The game was there was a stuffy team at Ibrox. We beat them 1-0. Hadji scored a nice goal, but they were stuffy. You know, they were kind of playing the flat back 12 in that game, and you know, you would kind of hope at home they won't. You kind of hope at home with not a lot at stake that they might, you know, try something else. But I suspect Davidson will be looking to tactically see if there's any way they can hurt us. Is there any way of you know, what we'll do is quite what we'll learn tomorrow night for either manager. I don't know. I think we probably all know each other well enough, but I'm not sure it's going to be give us much of an insight into Sunday's game. But yeah, we have enough to win if we turn up, if we're in the right frame of mind.
Gary McAllister, Stevie G didn't come out for the press duties today. It was Gary McAllister, and as I sort of alluded to earlier on, he suggested that excuse me, they would probably freshen the team up tomorrow. So I was kind of looking at the options for players coming in. I found out a wee stat actually that I'll put to you. But you know, you're looking at guys like Roof, who's obviously been out injured recently, Wright, who looks like he's been itching to get a decent amount of game time. You know, Bassett, Eaton, those kind of guys. A wee stat on Roof that I discovered today, John, which I found quite interesting. I was comparing his stats with Morelos and his conversion rate, and it's off the charts compared to Morelos. I think Morelos his conversion rate's like 19% or something like that. And Roof's is like 33.3. So even though he plays less games, he's scoring more goals, and I think he's scoring a goal like every 129 minutes or something like that. And Morelos it's like every like 160 minutes or something. I can't quite remember, but there is a striking difference between their sort of conversion rate, and it makes you wonder, you know, would he have challenged more if it wasn't for the injuries? You know what I mean? Would they have really put a challenge on Morelos for that sort of number 9 position if it wasn't for his injuries? Because it doesn't feel like that. It feels like Morelos is the main man. You know what I mean? But when I was looking at those stats today, I found it quite interesting.
I would say that Roof was first choice when he picked up his injury. I think Roof had, you know, dislodged is maybe too strong a word, but I think Roof had nosed ahead in the pecking order at the start of the season. I mean, remember Roof, you know, some of the European games before Christmas, when, you know, Roof was absolutely outstanding in them. Yeah. And I think Roof had just edged ahead of Morelos before he picked up his injury. And what's interesting is Morelos' form since then was excellent. You know, yeah. Morelos was kind of a bit hit and miss at the start of the season, but his form, ironically, the opposite of previous seasons. His form in the second half of the season has been absolutely fantastic. And I'm a wee bit wary of these kind of stats. Partly because I'm old and I'm a curmudgeon and I don't understand them entirely, but I think also I'm a little wary of them because I don't think they take in the context of a game, and I think Morelos just now creates so much space for other players. He's so good at holding up, so good at winning free kicks. You know, he's coming deep so folk can go past him. His link-up play has greatly improved. You know, I would I still think Morelos is our first choice. When everybody's fit, I think Morelos is our first choice. I don't think he's going to play tomorrow night. I hope he's not going to play tomorrow night. I think we'll give him a rest. I wouldn't be surprised to see Defoe get a run tomorrow night as well. But I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised to see Roof. I think Roof will come in. But it's an interesting stat. I think Roof's an excellent striker. He's got to stay fit. That's the challenge with Roof. Is stay fit. Yeah.
Any others you think could maybe get a wee bit of game time? I mean, I think Wright's the obvious one. I would like to see. I mean, we're talking about Roof here, and we're talking about maybe Defoe getting a bit of game time. But I always like seeing.
I think you could see wholesale changes.
Sorry,
I think you could see wholesale changes. I think you could see. The keeper being changed.
Yeah.
I think Bassey has a chance. I wonder if Simpson might start. I always
like it when he gets a run it.
I would be surprised if he isn't in. I don't think Kent will play. Midfield is probably the area where we're a bit short.
Yeah.
And I think he'd like to give Davis and Kamara a rest. I'm not sure he can. I think Arfield will play because I think he needs games. So I think he'll play. But I wouldn't be surprised if either Davis or Kamara is left out. But yeah, I think you'll see. I think big changes tomorrow night. I think it'll be a completely different team from the one that played on Sunday, and I think it'll be completely different from the one that plays this Sunday.
Do you think, based on the issues that we had at St Mirren, as maybe Steven Gerrard, you're saying you think you'll see wholesale changes? Do you think that night at St Mirren when we got put out the Betfred Cup, do you think that'll maybe just put them off going for that and maybe just leave one or two in there?
No, I don't think. I mean, I think it matters to us getting through the season unbeaten. I'm not sure. I don't know. I think what's more important to the club just now is winning the Scottish Cup. We've won the league, which was the ultimate goal, and then now it's about winning the Scottish Cup. And so I think the sensible thing, you rest key players when you can. And bring them back in for the cup game. So, I think in actual fact, this St Mirren game will have taught them to play his strongest team in the cup game. Plus, it was a different time in the season. I mean, we hadn't won the league and we were still playing in Europe at that point.
Yeah.
And you can kind of understand why he brought in some of the fringe players for that match. And we should have had enough to beat St Mirren. We certainly should have had enough to get through the 90 minutes. When you get back to 2 each at that point, the momentum was all with us. There's no way we should have lost that game in 90 minutes. I think one of the biggest compliments I can pay to Steven Gerrard is that he has learned from his mistakes. And when he's made a mistake, they've gone away and understood what mistake did we make? How do we make sure we don't make this again? And you've seen that this season with us pushing on after Christmas, when in the previous 2 seasons we're falling away. You've also seen that, I think, in how he's managed certain players. I mean, look what Tav brought us this season. Even look at Morelos. So I don't expect fringe players to play against St Johnstone this weekend, but I think they will play tomorrow night.
In terms of players coming back, a chance for Tav to maybe make an appearance at some point tomorrow, do you think?
That's the difficult one, isn't it? Do you give him this game to try and get his match fitness back up, or do you keep him out to just give him another week working on his fitness and take away the risk that he picks up a niggle or a knock? I don't know. Patterson needs games as well, strangely. In the end, what's Patterson played? Like 7 games his entire career. He needs games. None of us know what the future holds with Tav. I don't mean that I expect that he'll be leaving the club in the summer. I don't think that's, who knows who come in from. I don't think necessarily that's likely. But I do think there's a chance that we'll need to. I don't think we can get another full season at Tav like we got last season. I just think that's not physically possible on a player. But we'll see. And there's still, I think, the word on the appeal against the ban will come through at some point as well, which I guess will have some bearing on whether Zungu and Patterson can play anyway. So that might take that decision out of our hands. Balogun's still injured, isn't he? So I don't know. I'm not sure who could play right back if Patterson's out. If Tav's not fit, and Patterson suspended, I don't know, turn up your boots. I think you've got a chance.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm just going to head up to Perth, and somebody's saying Liam King, but no, I'll turn up with my boots.
You just tell him you are Liam King. I'm sure you could pass for a 17-year-old.
17 stone, maybe. Now, in terms of watching the game tomorrow, I mean, you were alluding earlier on there that you sort of had, you watched it on a stream and all the rest of it. I only found out earlier on today that the game isn't on like Sky or Premier Sports or this kind of thing, or BT, that it's on Saints TV. £17.50 to buy the stream. Now, I get that clubs are struggling. It's a real hard time for clubs, especially the big clubs who are looking to break away into some super duper, Europa League type thing, which we'll come on and discuss. But for clubs at the lower end of the spectrum, it's even tougher because they rely more on, gate receipts. Whereas bigger clubs, obviously, they've got other streams of revenue. So I understand that for a club like St Johnstone, it's really difficult just now, right? I get that. But £17.50 for a stream, and I'm sure it was a similar price the last time.
Yeah.
And for the first 20 to 30 minutes, there wasn't even any commentary. And right when the stream started, I think we had this image of a guy like hooking up cables and stuff like that, setting everything up.
Where's the SCART cable? Dorothy, where's the SCART cable?
It was so bad. I mean, like St Mirren, we played St Mirren in the league a couple of weeks later, around about that time, around about Christmas time, and their service was really good. I think it was cheaper. I think it was like £12. And they had a proper show. They had like someone hosting it. They had Tony Fitzpatrick on talking about St Mirren and all that kind of thing. And they really tried to give you your 12 quid's worth or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But with St Johnstone, it was like, again, it was like £16, £17. And it was really, really poor. And when I saw that again today, I just thought, I've had my faith in football shaken a lot over the last few years. Even more so over the last couple of days when you consider everything's happening. Yeah. And just when there was a feeling that everyone was starting to fall away with that, I saw that tweet for St Johnstone. I was like, really? £17.50? Come on.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's. I think it's too expensive. I think it's too much money. I personally think it's self-defeating. I think there's an amount where people will say, okay, I'll pay that.
Yeah.
I'll pay that. I don't mind paying that. And I think £17.50 is over that amount. And it's one of these things, you make it a tenner.
Over that amount.
Yeah, I think you make it £9.99, both of us pay it, and the club get 20 quid.
Yeah.
You make it £17.50, maybe one of us buys it. So they're losing money, because at the end, it makes no difference to them whether, it doesn't change what they have to do, whether there's 5,000 people watching it or 50,000 people watching it. Same amount of work for them. So I don't understand the economics in this. I don't understand where they're getting that figure from. And they're not the only club who's been charging that this season. In some ways, we've not had to pay streaming to other clubs a great deal because a lot of our games have been televised. At the same time, we have to buy Sky, we have to buy BT, we have to get Premier Sports to watch these games. So, it swings and roundabouts. But it's frustrating. And it was announced, yesterday, Sunday, lots of things have gone missing in the announcements because of all the hullabaloo in the Super League. But Sky have signed a deal to do streaming next season as well.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
So
I didn't see that we had a new shareholder, which we're about to go into with all this.
Well, that's all happened quite quickly as well. But it's too much. I agree with you. I think it's too much, particularly for a game that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing at stake. 3 points at stake. Yes, pride at stake. I agree entirely with all of that, but it's disappointing.
See with St Johnstone as well. It seems to me that they're one of the worst when the fans get in as well. I was at a game there last season. I took the boy up. One of my mates had a couple of spare tickets. It was 2 adult tickets. So for me and my son to get in, it was like 65 quid. It was like £32-33 a ticket. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, a good day, Rangers won 4-0, and, I like sort of try to introduce my son into going to away games. I don't go to a huge amount of away games, but I do enjoy it when I get the opportunity. And, as I got out of the car to get the ticket off my mate, and he told me how much it was, I was like, what? You know what I mean? It's just like, if I'd known that, I would maybe have thought twice about taking the tickets, you know what I mean? And it just seems... I don't know, maybe it's because it's Perthshire and they're a bit affluent up there, but it seems to me that it's because we're an old firm club. I'm pretty sure that Celtic fans will get the same treatment. To me, it reeks of, these guys will pay it, just charge it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's going on for years. You can't take St Johnstone and blame them on their own, because the club set the pricing. That's agreed by the league beforehand. So there are agreements in place of what ticketing will cost, and clubs agree to that. So it's not entirely St Johnstone's fault. But yeah, the amount of hypocritical garbage that I've heard over the last 48 hours, about football and things, we've been getting fleeced by other clubs as long as I've been going to watch Rangers, and as we found out last Friday night, that's a long time. And this has been going on for as long as I remember. And the challenge they've got is, there's no alternatives to spending £17.50. And that's the challenge they've got. They need to understand that whilst alternatives are maybe not as good, and I would rather not go down that road. But there's a point where you just say, "Aye, very good." I'm not just handing you over my wallet here. You have to be delivering something that I'm willing to pay for. So get the pricing right, and we'll do it.
We'll do it. Yeah, that's how I feel. I think if it's fair, then you're more likely to do it. The chances are, because I'm so, as Frankie will confirm, I'm so shite when it comes to IT stuff, I probably will, because see, when I try and find a stream and all the rest of it, I'm one of these guys that just never works. It just stresses me out. So I'm probably going to fork out the £17, but I'll do it.
The good thing about the streams is, not only do you get to watch the game, but you usually get a Russian wife by the end of it as well. So,
Well, you were watching the game with some French commentator on Sunday, you know what I mean?
I was. Yeah. I don't know what the French is for he's rubbish, that Celtic centre forward, but I'm fairly certain that's what we're saying an awful lot. I think they felt more would come from Edward than they were actually seeing. Anyway.
Right, John, it was you that made me aware of this just before we came on air. It was announced today. Also, Club 1872 made an announcement today, which we'll come on and discuss a wee bit later on. But new shareholder in the club, Perron Investment, which apparently is owned by a guy called John Halstead. He's invested $3 million and now owns 4.16% of the club. I don't know how to view this. Is it good news? Is it bad news? I'm not really sure. I must admit, since everything that's happened over the last 10 years, I think I view anyone like this through sort of suspicious eyes, if you know what I mean. Now, I'm not saying there's anything to be bad about this guy. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I am burnt from previous experiences of people coming in and taking, a stake in the club. So from what I had a wee look on Twitter, and from what I'm reading, it all seems good and it all seems positive. But, I'm always a wee bit, oh God, what is this guy? What's his aim and all that kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's exactly my feeling. I'm always wary. Okay, let's look at the positives. The club needs £3 million. The club's losing money. We're talking about St Johnstone there, and Rangers are losing money this season, despite winning the league, despite having a great run in Europe. We're losing money this season. We're losing a lot of money. This is something like the fourth shareholding, the fourth issue this year. That's not sustainable, and it's been a great season, but that's not sustainable. Rangers need to find, to speak in business terms, they need to find some new income streams, and let's be honest, that will involve selling players. So, and I think we all know. I think we were all surprised we didn't sell anyone last summer. I think we're all accepting that we're probably going to have to sell 2 or 3 this summer, because this is unsustainable. So we have to welcome the investment, because it's something that the club needs. I think we also have to say that the current board of directors have the club's best interests at heart. I feel that. There may be other people who don't, but I think the directors we have just now are Rangers supporters. I don't think they're in it to make money. If they are, I don't think they're going to make money. I don't think there's any money to be made in Scottish football. I don't think that's what they're in it for. I think they're in it because they're Rangers fans. I think they're in it because they want the club to succeed. So they've obviously been amenable to this sale. You have to assume there's been some due diligence done on Mr. Halstead and Perron Investment. So, I'm willing to go along with their judgment call on this. But like you, I am wary. I don't know why an American investment banker with no connections to Glasgow that I can see or have heard of, no particular connections to Rangers or even Scottish football that I'm aware of, would want to spend £3 million on Rangers. And we're the better team. We're the best team in the league. I know. Maybe just on Sunday. I know most of the time we're not, but we're a good team. But £3 million is a lot of money. It's maybe not a lot of money to these guys, but it's a lot of money. And you do wonder, how does he get his money back? What's his end game in this? Yeah. And that is a bit of a concern. But the reality is, he only owns just over 4% of the club, so he has less of a shareholding, less of a voice in the club than quite a lot of people. So we'll just have to see. We will just have to see.
Right, John. Before we move on to the sort of the next topic, I should point out that with Rangers playing tomorrow night, if you fancy the chance to win a share of £1,000, then you can play Rangers Picks, the official Rangers Pick'em game, which is available to play for every Rangers match. It's totally free to play. All you have to do is visit www.rangerspicks.com, complete a series of questions about the game tomorrow night, and that'll give yourself an opportunity to win a share of £1,000. The more fans that play, the more money the club receives. You must be over 18 to play, guys. T's and C's apply, and please, as always with these things, play responsibly. Now, John, obviously there's been a lot of stuff going on over the last 2 or 3 days in the sort of football world, and Rangers aren't directly involved, but I thought it was worthwhile having a wee discussion about it, because it does indirectly affect us, or it could anyway. And I suppose it could directly affect us in terms of qualifying for next season's Champions League if all this stuff went through. As it turns out, as we're being on air tonight, I think a few of the clubs have already distanced themselves from it and saying that they're pulling out. There's been a couple of resignations on the back of it, and it looks like the whole thing is fallen by the wayside. But I mean, I don't know how you felt when all this came out. I mean, as I said earlier, the sort of older I've got, I have become disillusioned a wee bit with football, and the general direction it's heading. And then, I mean, it's predominantly the top end of the game. But I mean, I know Scotland is a little bit of a backwater, but even some of the stuff that goes on here, like the £17.50 for a stream, like Rangers introducing a second home kit, a retro kit that they only wear once, that they charge £70 for, stuff like that really does sort of. I can remember when Rangers brought out that retro kit, I had a debate with a couple of guys on Twitter saying it's up to fans to buy it, and I was like, it's their money. If they want to buy it, it's up to them, and I get that. But it is football clubs playing on supporters' loyalty. You know what I mean? They're playing on that the love that supporters have for the club. They're playing it. Let's bring it this top. We'll wear it once. We'll get beat, and then you'll never see it again, and we'll charge £70 for it. So I have been a wee bit disillusioned with football in general over the last few years. But the last couple of days, honestly, I felt like I was watching my favourite pub burn into the ground. You know what I mean? And like my son's coming in saying, "What'd you think?" And I was like, I genuinely think the game's gone. I don't know if I'll ever have the same feeling for football again. If this goes through, you know what I mean? I wouldn't say I was out, but I wouldn't be enjoying it as much, I don't think. And I would be... It just felt like a horrible, greed-motivated move.
Well, it was entirely a greed-motivated move. I don't think there's any debate about that. I mean, I think we can only look at this from a Rangers perspective, or a Rangers supporters perspective. Like you, I became more and more disillusioned with football and the direction football was going in over the last decade or so, probably more than that. I've been more resigned to it. It certainly wouldn't have, had this gone through, and it does certainly at this moment, it looks like it's the wheels have come off.
For now. But with these things, they always come back.
Well, see, this is that, you took the words out of my mouth there. For me, this had a feeling of inevitability about it. I just thought, well, this is the next logical step. Yeah. This has been the direction of travel. We I suppose Rangers need to take some blame for this, because we were involved in the first Champions League. But the first Champions League, and you'll remember this as well, we played in that group with the champions of France, champions of Belgium, champions of Russia, and the champions of Scotland. Okay? And there was very little between those 4 teams. Any one of those 4 teams could have won that group. Okay, going into the final to play against, as it was AC Milan, I think, that in the final that year, who are one of the best teams in the world at the time. But there was very little between those teams now. There's the gap now between the 2 teams who will play in the Champions League final and the champions of Belgium, Russia, and Scotland now is the same gap as there was between Rangers and a junior side at that time.
Yeah.
We could compete. We could go into the European Cup at that point. And don't get me wrong, we never went into the European Cup thinking, we're going to win this. But we could go into the European Cup at that time thinking, there's a chance. We get the right draw. There's a chance. You felt disappointed when you get knocked out because you thought, you know what, if only. Now, let's be honest here. The height of our ambition just now is qualifying.
Qualifying, yeah.
That's the height of our ambition. Okay? So for
me... And the club only wants to qualify to secure the money. You know what I mean? You just have to look at Celtic's sort of recent runs in the Champions League. They're getting pumped 7-0 for PSG and Barcelona, and they're happy to take a pumping because they get 20 million, 30 million in the bank. You know what I mean? And it is becoming, as you say, the gap is becoming so much. I mean, you're saying that, we didn't go into it expecting to win it, but we could win it. Well, again, speaking to my son about this, everyone talks about 92, 93. I remember 87, 88, when we put out Dynamo Kiev, there was a real feeling that we were winning it because they were the favourites. Yeah. We put them out in the first round of the tournament. We were the favourites, and the landscape was pretty good in terms of getting to the final. And the game against Steaua Bucharest, easy for me to see, Steaua Bucharest came at the wrong time. McCoy had just had a knee operation. I think he had like a ligament removed or something like that. So he was struggling. Butcher had obviously broke his leg earlier in the season. So to me, if we'd have got Bucharest at a different time in the season, I think we could have beat them. Mm-hmm. And it just came at the wrong time. And PSV won it that season. You know what I mean? And we could at that particular time, we could have beaten PSV Eindhoven, no problem at all. You know what I mean? That would have been a very close final. So, I mean, everyone goes on about 92, 93, but I remember that 87, 88 thinking, you know what, that was a real opportunity. And that's what it was like then. It was disappointing if you got put out by a team that didn't go on to at least the final. Yeah. You know what I mean?
In my time, and I know we don't. I get that. I get that there are people watching this just now thinking, bloody hell, they're like the old men of the sea. We're like the 2 guys in the Muppets, Waldorf, Statler and Waldorf. But I get that. But in my time, I've watched European Cup finals that have had Swedish teams in them, that have had Belgian teams in them, that have had Romanian teams in them, that have Serbian teams in them. And there's not a hope in hell of those clubs reaching the European Cup final, the Champions League Cup final. It's the whole game is rigged.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, what was announced yesterday morning, Sunday night, whenever it came out, was the inevitable next step of where football's been going for a long time. So, is it abhorrent? It absolutely is. Is it a surprise? Not really. Will it happen this time? It doesn't sound like it will. Will it happen? Absolutely. Here's the thing which I didn't know until very recently. FIFA, right? FIFA, the organisation that looks after the whole of football. FIFA have proposed a Super League in Africa. Okay? So they've proposed this year. Okay, they've proposed this the last couple of months. Okay, they have proposed a Super League in Africa where teams will buy in, right? So African club football, teams will buy in to a Pan-African Super League, okay? And they'll be guaranteed to stay in that for 5 years, okay? And it's like £20 million to enter. You're guaranteed to be in it for 5 years. There's a lot of criteria you've got to be in. And how they're selling it to the various different African associations, some of whom are enthusiastic, some of whom are a bit, don't know about this. How they're selling it to them is that this will create revenue for you guys, so you don't have to lose all your best players to Europe. So your best players don't, go off and play for the champions of, Moldova and Estonia and places that take young African lads in the hope of moving them on. So that's how it's been sold to them. But the point is, FIFA are literally creating a Super League just now, which is basically the same premise as this one. So that's the way it's going, because the football has chased money for the last 30 years, and it's stopped being about winning for winning's sake. And you see it. I don't watch a lot of English football, but this whole the chase for fourth place, bloody hell, fourth place.
Yeah, I know.
When did fourth place become something anybody was proud again? And that's had a detrimental effect on the cup competitions in England, because the FA Cup Absolutely. Used to be a big thing, and it's not anymore. Clubs would rather finish fourth than win the FA Cup. Oh, yeah. Clubs would rather finish 10th than win the FA Cup, because there's still more money in it for them.
Yeah.
And I get that the economics of it are such that, if you want to compete at that level, then you need to be earning a certain amount of money, and that money comes in via the revenues that the Premier League generate, that European football can generate. I understand that. But it's still abhorrent, because it goes against everything we understand about football. When we get put into the third division, okay? When we get put into the third division, we understood that's right, that's our punishment. But we also accepted that we then have it within our own hands to get back up to where we are just now.
Yeah.
We understood 10 years ago that it's in our hands to bring our club back to win the league again. That was always our goal, okay? And that's the reality for every team playing in Scotland now. It's perhaps an unrealistic reality for an awful lot of them, but that's the reality. So when you take that out of football, you obviously take something of its essence away. But I'm calling bullshit in a lot of this. Brecon City today. Did you see that statement from Brecon City?
I know.
The team have finished bottom of the second division for the last 2 seasons. Well, they haven't finished bottom yet, but they're going to. Saying, we don't think there should be relegation this season. You think, I can't believe the absolute nerve of you guys.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that Scotland had a closed system. Yes, you could be relegated. You could only be relegated so far, and eventually you couldn't. Highland League teams didn't get in. Lowland League teams, junior teams, they couldn't get in. It was a closed shop. So closed shops have existed in football, but not at the top level. So I don't know. I bet me Colin was like, fine, I'll just go. Yeah, fine, I'll just go. Just away you go and play your game. I found some of the hypocrisy from England.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to make. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think Gary Neville's came out with some good stuff over the last 2 or 3 days. But he was on Monday Night Football last night saying, the system we have now in the Champions League is fair. And I'm like, really?
True.
When we win the league, you ask us to jump through 5 hoops of qualifying rounds, whereas fourth place in one of the top 5 leagues just walks straight in. How is that even remotely fair? So you're right. There is a level of sort of contradiction and hypocrisy about this. And Klopp kind of called him out on it in his interview, saying, he played with Man United, he went where the money was, he's at Sky Sports just now, he goes where the money was. I thought it was a wee bit unnecessary, but he did strike a point, you know what I mean? And some of the hypocrisy is staggering, really. I mean, it's been compounded with this. I don't know if you've seen the sort of proposed revamped Champions League, I actually burst out laughing reading it today. A single league made up of 36 competing clubs. They'll play 10 matches, 5 home, 5 away. So you're not even playing every team that's in this one league. The top 8 sides qualify automatically for the last 16. 17th place to 24th place then play in a playoff situation, home and away, to get into the last 16. And then the last 16 onwards, as it is just...
Becomes a knockout, yeah.
And I was looking at it going, I mean, how long is the paper that you'll need to buy to look at the league table for a start? A 36-team league? Do we need to go back to the full sort of broadsheets again? You know what I mean? I just thought, and this is all to appease these big clubs that want, guaranteed revenue streams. And it seems to me that, I mean, I've enjoyed the Champions League over the years, and especially enjoyed, 92, 93. And I love big European nights at Ibrox, and I love hearing that anthem and all the rest of it. And I love the legacy of it when you go into the blue room and the trophy room and you see all the pennants and you get a real sense of the history. But it just feels like that we're on the wrong track here, and it's all going to shit.
I mean, somebody pointed out, it's the guy, is it Swiss Ramble on Twitter, who does a lot of the football finance, and he said today that the 16 clubs, is that how many it is? Or the 12 clubs who announced the breakaway, between them are in debt. Over £3 billion between them. You think, well, they shouldn't be allowed to organise anything.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they shouldn't be the last people that are allowed to make any decisions in these things, because these people can't run their own clubs.
It's interesting that Chelsea and Man City were the first to crack on this, because they're the ones that need it least of all.
Yeah,
you know, Man City are bankrolled by billionaires,
Abu Dhabi or whatever it is,
and Chelsea have got Abramovich, so they although they would want it, they don't necessarily need it. Whereas Spurs are $1 billion in debt because of that stadium. Barcelona are an absolute shambles now. Real Madrid the same. You know, the amount of debt that they're carrying is off the scale. So it's the clubs that are in the biggest amount of debt that are pushing this.
Yeah, and you have to stand back and look at them and say, how did you get yourself into that kind of debt? I mean, you see the revenues they get.
Yeah.
You think, well, how is it possible to have yourself in that state? You know, you shouldn't be in that state. No one forces you to spend that amount of money on salaries. You know, you guys have decided to do that. You know,
so that's the point. It's the money's coming in, but it's shark-infested waters now, isn't it?
Yeah.
The players are demanding huge salaries. Every agent, the minute he walks through a door, he's demanding a percentage of some fee or another. There was that super agent who, I don't know how he done it. Who was it that moved to Man United? I think it was when Pogba moved to Man United. He acted on behalf of the player and the club. Are we going to sign? Yeah, I think we should sign. Yeah, does that work? Right, and honestly, some of the stuff that I see now it puts you off the game so much, and it does, as you say, the amount of money that these clubs have generated over the last 20, 30 years. No club should be in $1 billion worth of debt, and the fact that they're callously using the pandemic as well. You know, that's what's driving it. We need to secure money because we've not had fans in for the last year. All of it reeks a wee bit. But I mean, I wanted to. I mean, it kind of ties in with stuff that's happened today with Club 1872.
Yeah.
Now, the German clubs, they were very on the face of it, they were like, no, we're not interested. Don't get me wrong. I think at boardroom level, they would have been interested, but they're tied into this. The clubs that were involved anyway, Bayern Munich and Dortmund, are tied into this model that's in Germany, the 50+1 model.
Yeah.
So, the club has to own 50% in one share of all the available shares, and no more than 49% of private investors can get in. And that means that the supporters are always sort of taken care of, and, the interests of the club are taken care of. Now, I was doing a wee bit of digging today, and there has been I think Rummenigge has been he's pushed on it a couple of times, saying, we need to look at this. And there are a couple of exceptions in Germany. If a private investor has been investing for more than 20 years, he can take ownership of the club. You've obviously got the Red Bull clubs over there.
Yeah, Red Bull, Hoffenheim have a funny thing.
So there are exceptions, but overall, the model over there. I read a really good book recently called "In the Sun Shines Now," and it's about Hillsborough and how that allowed the game to change over here. That allowed people to come in and sort of say, right, okay, let's polish this up a wee bit, let's get Sky involved. Some really dodgy stuff in it. Honestly, I recommend it. It's such a good read, but it shows you where the game changes, when it starts becoming more commercial and more about money and getting rid of the sort of working class element of supporters and bringing in more middle class audience and all that kind of thing. And it goes to Germany. The author goes to Germany to sort of, and it's their biggest fear. The supporters over there, they're like petrified that their game will end up like the English game. Yeah. And so, I mean, it was announced today that Club 1872 had sort of purchased, I think it was another 2 million shares for like 400k or something like that. Now, I know it's created a bit of debate over here, but I do think in the boardrooms of Dortmund and Munich, they would have wanted to have joined this Super League. I think they would have saw the numbers and thought, that'll do us. But they couldn't, because they're in this model where, it's 50+1 and the supporters are protected and the club's protected. And it does, there are arguments, we've had this debate before, there are arguments against fan ownership as such, because you need people to have knowledge and all the rest of it to run a football club, to run a business at that level. But surely the highest stake a supporter base can get in a club to have a voice helps. And surely this is an example of it. as I said, I think the German clubs would have been interested, but they couldn't do it. They had to sit back because of this ownership model.
Have you read Tor, The History of German Football? Right, okay. Well, I'll send that to you. I recommend that to you. I recommend that to anybody who's interested in football. It's the history of German football. And it explains the culture of how German football got to this stage. And there's a number of really fascinating things about German footballers were amateur right up until the late 60s.
60s, yeah.
The Bundesliga was an amateur league up until the late 60s.
It's the same with Holland as well, you know what I mean? And Ajax and Munich came out of that within a couple of years, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And the structure of the clubs and a lot of it's to do with just German society and German culture as well. And it is different from ours. It's very fortunate, I think, that the German clubs weren't involved in this, because I think if they had Bayern Munich and Dortmund, they've got it. They've got the 4 big TV markets, then Italy, Spain, Germany and England. Yeah. But whilst they didn't have Germany, then your French were still thinking, I'm not sure about this then. And there's a wee bit of thing. But not having them, I think, is probably why this is all falling apart, and then the kind of backlash in the media. I'm a big I believe in fan ownership. I think the struggle, Colin, is the cultural change that's required for fan ownership. You know, I mean, I live in west in the west of Glasgow. Clydebank are fan owned, okay, and I know a few guys who are Clydebank fans, and I know the difficulties that even a club that size has in appeasing its fan base, because everyone, well, this bloody club, I have a say, you know. And that's actually not how it works. You know, it's a bit like a trade union. If people can remember what trade unions were like, you vote, you have a vote, you have a say, but you have to then vote people in to make, to go and do things for you on your behalf. Yeah. And that's kind of how it has to work. And culturally, we're so far away from that. I saw something earlier on today talking about this chap who's, we were talking about earlier, the American guy, and it described him as I believe he is extremely wealthy, right? And I held my head in my hands. I thought, that's what matters here. This guy's extremely wealthy. This guy make pour millions into the club. Have we learned nothing?
Nothing. No.
Is that still what's important here? That's not what's important here. And trying to get around that mentality is hard. So I feel sorry for Club 1872, because I do at times think they get, I think at times they get criticised for stuff that they don't deserve criticised for. But at the same time, I know people who are quite big advocates of fan ownership, who would like to be involved, who have criticisms of Club 1872 and some of the communication and things like that. So it is a challenge. And it's going to be an ongoing challenge. It's impossible for the big clubs in England. It is possible for us. But, Dave King announced, 6 months ago now, he wanted to sell his shares to the support. I don't see the support, and they're not biting their hand off often for it. Our whole way, has not been fan ownership. Our way has been, John Lawrence running the club. John Lawrence supported Rangers. John Lawrence was a Glasgow guy. John Lawrence was a guy in business here. That's how the structure of our club was. Then, Lawrence Malwara was there, and David Holmes running the place. And then obviously Murray. But, we know what happened after that. And we're lucky just now. I do take this full circle. I think the guys in charge are Rangers supporters. I think we are supporter-owned just now, but it's not the same. It's not,
and you've always got the potential that it's not always going to be like that. You know what I mean? We've had that. We've had the crooks in. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's my worry. I can remember. I think David Murray's got a lot to answer for this, because I think we have a whole generation that grew up expecting, well, that's how football works. You have a sugar daddy, and he puts the money into the club. I can remember, like before, I had kids and all the rest of it. A lot of the times I just go to the game myself, because my mate had stopped going, so I'd go in and I'd always pop in. Remember the Vale next to Queen Street? Dodgy wee pub. I'd always go in there for a pint before I got my train. And I heard this guy talk next to me about David Murray this, David Murray that. And it was round about the time things were going a wee bit south. The debt was off the scale, and, the Rangers Supporters Trust had started, and I'd been sort of involved in some of that. And I'd been speaking to Colin Class at the time. And I turned around and I says, look, mate, David Murray's he's not all that. You know what I mean? We need to get away from that. And he turned around, and this is his very words. David Murray's bigger than Rangers. David Murray is Rangers. And I was like, whoa. I was like, mate, Rangers were there before David Murray was, and they'll be there a long time after. You know what I mean? We need to get away from this mentality that without him, we don't have a club. You know what I mean? And you're right, culturally, I think it's hard to break.
Yeah. And it doesn't say, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's a hard thing to do. And when you've been through what we've been through, you think we would be the one, of all the clubs in Scotland, you think we'd be the most wary. And, we're not. There's still an apathy around that. There's still a feeling of, I buy my season ticket. I buy the strip. What do you want from me? And I understand that, because these things are expensive. And you do wonder if the club said, you know what, see your season ticket next season, we're going to take 50% off it, right? But we want you to pay us the same amount of money, and we'll give you shares for the rest of it. It almost needs somebody to kind of think outside the box. But the club isn't in a position just now to turn away half of its season ticket revenue. But it maybe could do it in a different way, where buying shares becomes something that supporters just do. But then you still run the danger. I mean, these shares today, he didn't buy these shares from another. These shares didn't exist until today. Yeah. There's just more shares that get. We just created more shares. So it's a real challenge. And it would be great. It would be great if we were in a position where we knew Rangers were safe. That the people, that it would be impossible for somebody to do this to Rangers without the fans being on side. But at the same time, Colin, I think, had they got this off the ground, if it hadn't collapsed after 2 days, if they persevered with it, if this had got started, if next season, Barcelona were playing Man United and AC Milan were playing Liverpool, and this was on TV, and it would be on TV somewhere, eventually Bayern Munich would say, you know what, we need to be competing against them. We are the same size as these guys. We need to be competing against them. And I think eventually the Bayern Munich fans would have said, yeah, we should be. We didn't agree with it, but we should be competing against these ones. And I'm also of the opinion, I'm not sure how much worse it would be than the Champions League. Yes, okay, we can just about qualify for the Champions League just now, but they don't want us. They don't want the Scottish teams in the Champions League. The Europa League is where we belong. That's a competition that we can actually get into and play against teams that we've a chance of beating and competing with and enjoying ourselves. Champions League, and I hate to sound defeatist, but you got in that Champions League and there is a chance you get utter tanking off somebody. Because the disparity between the clubs is ridiculous. And it's frustrating when you are a big club. And I know there's no God-given right in football. And that's the thing I think that a lot of these guys in those 12 completely forgot about. There's no God-given right in football. It has to always be earned on the pitch. But, when you're a club with the support we have and the loyal support we have and in times fanatical support we have, it's not right that, the fourth best team in England one year gets straight in and we don't. That's not right. That goes against everything we were brought up to understand about football. Yeah. You win that league, you go into the next one. And the ultimate at that was the European Cup final. When you got to the European Cup final, you could go no higher. That was it. You'd reached the pinnacle, and then you start again. So, I'm glad it's fallen apart. I'm not
really gutted actually, because they gave us a chance of winning it next year.
It's true. I was in Antwerp in the final. It's and it's the thing. It's something we could probably talk about all night, and I appreciate that we can't. But it's
quite depressing.
What UEFA's going to bring in its place, I suspect, wouldn't be much better. I don't see this as being a kind of a seismic moment, Colin, where football suddenly changes direction and we go back to what it was meant to be. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think people in England would be celebrating the fact that Sky keep pumping £5 billion into the English Premier League instead of whilst sticking 50 million into ours. This isn't suddenly going to change things for us. We're still going to be on the outside looking in. We're just looking in a different window.
Well, I mean, you're right, John. We could talk about it all night. You know what I mean? And it has. I mean, I'm obviously delighted after Sunday's result, but I must admit, like, for a good bit of yesterday and for most of the day, I was just like, oh my God, this is so bad. And even although it's kind of fell by the wayside, it's still leaving a rotten taste in my mouth, I must admit. And I do think they'll be back, but as I say, that's maybe a discussion for another day.
We'll talk about it over the summer.
We will, yeah, and I'll send you that book.
I'll send you Tor.
Right, guys, I think that's all we've got time for tonight. So a big thanks to John for his contribution there. Some interesting stuff, as always, from him. We'll have a show out on Friday to preview St Johnstone Part 2, and obviously we'll have the flagship show on Sunday looking at how we got on. Hopefully we'll get through that and into the next round of the Cup. In the meantime, get yourself onto the Gersnet website and forums at www.gersnet.co.uk. Guys, until next time, stay safe. Bye for now.